Hello, welcome again to the Flying Cloud Zen YouTube channel in these series of short talks that I'm offering you. I hope they're of help to you in your practice. Please continue, as so many of you have been doing, commenting and emailing me with questions and suggestions for other talks you'd like to hear and other teachings you'd like to receive via this conduit. That's really helpful for me and for our whole community here. So thank you so much for doing that. Today I'll offer another one to you on original blessing. I want to talk about original blessing. I don't know that that's a canonical phrase necessarily in Buddhism, that that's an official term. But it feels powerful to me, the term original blessing, because I was raised in a Catholic, the Roman Catholic tradition here in the United States. And the Catholic tradition has a teaching that many of you know called original sin, an original missing of the mark, an original flaw, an original break. That's a core teaching of the Catholic tradition. And in Buddhism, we have almost the exact opposite teaching. And I don't want to get too far into the doctrinal weeds here, but one could argue that there is a similar or at least related teaching in Buddhism to original sin called the truth of dukkha, the first noble truth. All life, human life, is characterized by the experience of suffering. That, through a certain lens, could be likened to original sin and original missing of the mark. But I'm not going to go there today. Today I want to talk about original blessing as a contrast to the idea of original sin. And I'm going to do that by starting off with a quote from my teacher's teacher in my particular lineage of Zen Buddhism, Dainin Katagiri Roshi. He is the founder of Hokyoji community in southeastern Minnesota. He's also the founder of Ganchoji in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, much more commonly known as Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. And several books now have been published with his name as the author, although he didn't write any of them to be books. His students over the many years have coalesced, transcribed talks, and found ways of editing and packaging so much of his Dharma wisdom into books. And to those people, we remain tremendously grateful. So this quote is from the collection, The Light That Shines Through Infinity, that was edited by MZMC member Andrea Martin, a deeply devoted Zen student and a great Dharma teacher in her own right. So the quote I'd like to read to you today from Katagiri Roshi says, "Everlasting light is constantly illuminating your life. But human consciousness cannot believe it. And so we first have to open up ourselves to accept that light. Everyone always forgets this first practice." I'll read that to you again. Everlasting light is constantly illuminating your life, but human consciousness cannot believe it. So we first have to open ourselves to accept that light. Everyone always forgets this first practice. I understand why he calls it the first practice. I also understand what he means when he says that our human consciousness cannot believe it. We're so stubborn. So everlasting light is the term he happened to use on that day when he was giving this talk. What he is referring to is the central, fundamental Buddhist teaching of intrinsic enlightenment, or a lot of different terms for this, or original mind, we might say in Zen, or original face, we might say in Zen. Sometimes this is referred to as true self. Individuals and teachers over the many years have found their own way of talking about this, their own phrase, the uncarved block, or Bankei's unborn, the unborn, that which is not subject to birth and death. Intrinsic enlightenment, right? Original blessing is the term I'm using today. Everlasting light, Katagiri called it in this talk. We're talking about this fundamental idea in Buddhism that we are all already enlightenment itself, that our lives are already the dynamic unfolding activity of enlightenment, of Buddha itself, right? We're already awareness itself. We're already awakeness itself, right? We're a manifestation as Homo sapiens, right? Of the entirety of life itself. We are life, right? Life in a particular shape, in a particular form, with a particular capacity, in a particular time, yes. But at the same time, we're also just life itself, right? Endlessly evolving, endlessly growing, endlessly knowing, and endlessly conscious, coming into contact constantly with new ideas, new sensations, new emotions, new thoughts, expanding, growing, right? It doesn't actually take that deep of an examination of the history of life on Earth to understand, oh, we are life. We're an expression of life. And it is always complexifying, it is always expanding, it is always containing more, it is always becoming larger, right? The energy of life is an energy of expansion and inclusion. Expansion and inclusion. Wow. That's the nature of life, right? That original yes, that original blessing, everlasting light, we call it, right? So when we come to a tradition like Buddhism, that puts such a focus on awareness, the nature of heart, the nature of mind, right? The nature of how human awareness, how conceptual and non-conceptual, how the evolution of just knowingness, we call it enlightenment, right? Consciousness. What the nature of that consciousness is, how it creates suffering, how it creates freedom from suffering. We put so much emphasis on understanding what that is in Buddhism, and we put so much emphasis on experiencing the nature of that consciousness ourselves in Buddhism. So when we first come, we're oftentimes exposed to the idea pretty quickly, for most of us, the teaching I'm offering you today. Oh, by the way, you're already that. You're already enlightenment itself. You're already Buddha. You're already the activity of original mind, fully functioning, dynamic functioning without ceasing. That's already your true nature. And of course, we're taken aback. Sometimes even frustrated by this teaching, the stubborn human mind. As Katagiri Roshi says, our human consciousness can't believe this. It makes sense to me why we struggle so much with this idea that you're already originally unbounded freedom, awakeness itself, not limited. Because we experience our lives so often, so much as that first noble truth, as suffering, as constriction, as pain, as moments of anguish or doubt, despair, anger, greed, wanting, grasping, attachment, longing. That's the nature of our day-to-day life, it seems, so much of the time. Our experience of being consciousness and form, right? Life as human seems just marbled perpetually with dissatisfaction and struggle and constriction and anguish. That when someone says, your freedom, your original blessing, your everlasting light, your intrinsic enlightenment, of course we doubt. Of course we do. That makes sense to me. I want to honor both of those experiences, right? Buddhism doesn't argue against either, but it does frequently remind us, please recall in your practice that which you truly are, so that you don't become caught, so that you don't become stuck, right? So that you don't go back to sleep again and imagine that you're just small and that the boundaries of your suffering are indeed your boundaries, that you're actually that separate, that you're actually that caught, right? Please remember the other dimension of your life, the boundless dimension of your life, consciousness itself, life itself, love itself, awareness itself, enlightenment itself. So when people take up a meditation practice, although it doesn't have to be contingent on a meditation setting, but that's often the conduit that we talk about, especially in Zen Buddhism. People take up meditation practice and they start to work with their consciousness. They start to notice the patterning. They start to bear witness to their own experience. They start to notice those pockets that I'm talking about of suffering, grasping, greed, aversion, frustration, anger, the thing that we call suffering. We start to notice, wow, gee, my life is just full of those little moments, sometimes not so little. But slowly but surely, I'm becoming aware of something else, that I keep watching them. I keep noticing them. And I notice how they're created, and I notice how they change in the field of my experience, and I notice how they start to change into something else, and I notice how they leave. Right? You've never had an experience of suffering that didn't arise and change and leave. And so slowly but surely, something is starting to dawn on us. As persistent as the habit of suffering, the patterns of suffering are, indeed, in human experience, the first noble truth, we're beginning to apprehend something else. I'm the one who's watching that, aren't I? I'm actually the one who's bearing witness to that arising and that changing and that dissolution and that movement, aren't I? I'm the one who's watching. I am the witness to. I'm the awareness, right? That is holding these different moments of time, changing phenomena, the stuff of experience. I'm the witness, right? I can watch busy mind because I'm not busy mind. Wow, there's part of me that isn't busy. There's part of me that isn't suffering, that can bear witness to suffering, right? There's part of me that's open and clear without boundary that gets to watch the part of me that gets constricted and trapped and caught, right? Look how often it happens. Look how often it happens. And look how the one who sees it each time isn't that. So slowly but surely, we become identified with that awakeness, the awakeness that notices, the awakeness that bears witness to, the awakeness that holds, right? The awakeness that isn't caught, right? We start to actually slowly but surely, through our lived experience, have some faith that Katagiri Roshi is actually telling the truth. Hold on a minute. One of the fundamental teachings of Buddhism might actually be right. Maybe I am intrinsic enlightenment itself, everlasting light. I am the one who is outside of birth and death, the unborn, as Bankei said, the uncarved block, the original face, that watches the change of this human experience, this human body, this human face, the suffering of this human being, the longing, the grasping, the greed, the frustration, right? The limited experience of the human in form from a place that isn't bound by that. I'm starting to understand that my experience is containing both of these dimensions, but one of them is going, going, gone. And one of them seems outside of time, doesn't experience passage the way my humanity does. And so then we start using words like everlasting or intrinsic or original, right? These are referring to the infinite nature of consciousness. Infinite meaning it's literally not finite, it's not bound. It's just outside of the field of time, right? Outside of space itself. Wow. Buddha nature. Buddha nature, awakening nature that all beings actually are. This is a non-conceptual awareness we come into. We can think our way around all of what I'm talking about. We can think our way into this kind of stuff. That's lovely. That's fine. That's very human. But conceptual understanding is by definition limited by the frame of the concept. And so it's automatically finite. I would encourage you, like so many Zen teachers do, don't worry too much about having some giant direct apprehension of everlasting light or intrinsic enlightenment that we call a breakthrough experience, a Kensho experience, an enlightenment experience. That's lovely. When that happens, it's lovely. Good, wonderful, right? You've just become non-separate from the truth. You've just remembered, basically. You just remembered, oh, right, I'm this. I always have been this. Those big experiences aren't so important. They're lovely when they happen, but I don't encourage people to pursue them and try to create them and try to force them into being. It doesn't seem right to me. What feels more right to me is to realize that my ongoing devotion to meditation practice itself, whether that's on the cushion formally, right, in the posture that we call zazen, in between the bells, in a very strict fashion, or whether it's off the cushion, simply noticing my experience through the lens of mindfulness, through the lens of curiosity, through the lens of accepting and holding, right? Those are the moments I'm planting the seeds over and over, reminding myself, I am the witness. I am the witness. I am that which is unbound. I am remembering. I'm remembering what I really am. Yes, I'm observing a human who is struggling in the field of time, of course. And I can observe that through the engaged, compassionate, and wise witness that we call original face, right? Or everlasting light. We're not talking about a separateness. We're talking about a very engaged willingness to touch with full awareness. And yet never forgetting, I am that which watches. I am everlasting light. So in those moments, even when they're little tiny ones, oh, right, I'm watching. There, we accomplish what Katagiri Roshi invited us to accomplish. That's our first practice. There's that moment of accepting. Oh, right, I am the light. I'm the light. I'm remembering. I accept. There's the first practice. Isn't that nice? I would far rather have 10,000 little tiny moments of that than one big lightning strike, right? These 10,000 little moments of, right, I'm the one who's shining awareness on this circumstance. I'm the one who's noticing the suffering. I'm the one who's noticing the struggle. Right, that's right. I would much rather have those 10,000. That's transformative. That changes a human heart. That changes the compass of a human life, much more so than one giant experience. So that's the gist. That's the gist of the teaching. That's what I wanted to say to you today. Original blessing. Original blessing. It's not like a dogma or a doctrine teaching that we try to get into us from the head down and go, right. I'm originally light itself. I'm originally awareness. Yes, remind yourself of that, of course. That teaching is correct. But we come to grow into actually understanding this non-conceptually. We grow into embodying this through practice, through the spirit of repetition over and over. Sitting as Buddha, becoming Buddha, right? Chopping vegetables as Buddha, becoming Buddha. Waiting for your child at the bus stop to come home from school as Buddha, becoming Buddha. We do it this way. I hope that's helpful for you to be reminded of that. Your everlasting light. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your attention as always. And as I said at the beginning, please keep those comments and emails coming. It's good to see you again. All right, bye-bye.